Ever since I was a small boy, I've unfortunately had to deal with the toxicity and bullying which exists in this world. It's something I wish I didn't have to deal with, but I don't control the framework of existence that I'm placed into or the choices other people make. The only choices that I have when faced with certain experiences is how I choose to respond to them. And that's interesting for me, of all people, to say, considering the fact that I just suffered a complete mental and emotional breakdown in the last decade of my life after my dad died, and I watched the pride cycle within others show me where my worth in their eyes really stemmed from. It wasn't some intrinsic value of me as a person, it was only ever what I could do for them. That was a lot for me to process, and it was more than I knew how to process. I recognize painfully that the quote or saying that when the time for action comes, the time for preparation has passed. I was ill prepared for certain life experiences. In hindsight, I look back and I have a level of judgment towards my own parents, but that's nothing new. As a small child, I remember screaming at my parents, you didn't raise me, I raised myself, because I was so hurt. Anyway, the cards I've been dealt are dealt. The circumstances that have been placed before me are what they are. And one of the things that I take issue with bullies. I take issue with people who are willing to make decisions which come at the expense of other people, who use forms of influence to try and, compel another person, to take away from that person their own freedom of choice in order to try and force them to do what you want them to do. That whole aspect of broken human psychology is something that my soul has been in opposition to since I arrived in this world. I can still remember, and I found myself pondering this earlier this morning, I can remember one of the things that annoyed me the most, even as a small child, was when I would encounter other people, whether they were adults or children, and if they did something wrong, if they did something stupid, if they tripped over their own, feet, so to speak, and fell on their face, instead of simply acknowledging their own human error, their immediate response would be to dust themselves off and be like, I meant to do that. It's like, wait a second. No, you didn't. Why are you now lying to other people and trying to convince them that you meant to do something that obviously you did not? What's going on inside of your mind? And that broken psychology in another person, for the life of me, has just chapped my ass. And the interesting thing is, I understand that we often judge in others what we ourselves might be guilty of. So even though I see this in other people, I'm always, apt to look into myself and say, okay, where am I not applying that? And who knows, I may be completely damned in my own pride, and that may be, the linchpin to the whole thing. But I would need someone to, again, hold up the mirror for me in a manner that would allow me to even see it, to digest it. The way that some people choose to respond to you, and based on the light and knowledge that they've received, is gross. It's disgusting. I don't want to deal with it. If me needing to receive light and knowledge from you requires me to endure the abuse that you want to demonstrate, I'm not sure I want to take the time to endure it just to get it. Within Mormonism, they quite literally teach the opposite of it. And that's mind-boggling to me. In a church where, on the one hand, they suggest that bullying and discrimination should not have any place in the church, I can show you literal talks given by LDS prophets and apostles that quite literally explain the opposite, that what you should do is roll over to the bullying in order to get yours. And ultimately, I feel like this all boils down to how we as people do or do not respond to certain experiences in life, and whether or not what we're doing in response aligns with what is true and correct, or whether it's self-serving and in our own best interest, but perhaps not in the best interest of society at large. With that being said, it chaps my ass that Charlie Kirk is dead. I genuinely, in my heart of hearts, thought and wanted the privilege to interact and to speak with that man. To learn that some stupid fucking son of a bitch out of the Mormon church is guilty for ending that man's life. Oh, it kindles my indignation, right alongside my judgments towards the LDS Church for their influence in creating the laws against marijuana in our country, and then going ahead and flip-flopping all of these hundreds of years later, acknowledging what? That you were wrong? No, you didn't admit that you were wrong. You fell flat on your fucking face, and then you got up and you dusted yourself off, and instead of taking accountability and demonstrating a level of personal accountability, you demonstrate that you don't know how. Either that, or that you care more about your image in the eyes of others than you care about doing what it is that God, your Father, would require of you. Does this bother me? Yeah. Yeah, it does. It's like, sometimes it feels like being in a primary or a daycare center with a bunch of toddlers. And I myself am just a toddler, you know? And yet for some reason I'm sitting here trying to explain to the rest of us, like, hey, we should pick up our toys so we don't trip over them and fall on our face. And none of the other little kids want to learn it. You know, none of the other kids want to understand the value of certain things. And if you try to explain it to them and use words that are too big, oh man, they become offended. And this is the pride cycle that we're facing. The only way to overcome it would be to unite as a group of people. The other day I heard a YouTube video where a guy referred to addressing the toxicity of a lot of people that are responding to the murder of Charlie. And they responded to it in a manner that was described as pulling weeds. Oh, I love that analogy. I've been using that analogy for years. It's a perfect analogy. If we have a garden, you know, and I do right over here, there's a little garden space. And if I want what is good, what is desirable, to grow, to bring forth unto the season thereof, and yet what I'm dealing with are weeds that choke out that which is good, well, then I would need to pull those weeds in order to remove what is not good, in order to allow for what is good to grow. Show me an organization that won't take accountability for the things they're doing wrong. Show me an organization that will refuse to demonstrate their due diligence in a manner that quite literally comes at the expense of the children of God, while simultaneously patting themselves on the back and claiming that they are being led and guided by Jesus the Christ, when in reality they will lead you into a wall and then walk off failing to take accountability. Yeah, I'll show you a church I take issue with at that point. I do not sustain the unrighteous dominion that is being demonstrated by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. If the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints were successful in bringing to pass the fulfillment of prophecy that the form of government they believe they have fills the whole earth, then God help us, we would be in a worse situation than before the United States Constitution was ever birthed into existence. Take a look. In Europe, if you went ahead and expressed what was perceived as dissension, if you desired to express your freedom of religion, they would go ahead and act against you. And what are they doing in the Mormon church? The same thing. But will they acknowledge it? No, they will not. Why? Well, because in their own mind, they believe that they're righteous. It's ironic because their own Book of Mormon explains this process of cognitive dissonance. But don't listen to me, because I'm not righteous enough in their eyes to be worthy of consideration. You know, it's narcissism, unfortunately. And ironically, the Mormon church has their own prophecy that they believe that it is in this final hour that they will break that cycle of pride. What does that mean? That means that somewhere on this planet are a crop of my brothers and sisters, those who were the noble and great ones reserved for the final hour, who were willing to go ahead and put it on the line, who cared more about doing what was right than about how they were seen by mammon or in the eyes of others, who were willing to stand up for the golden rule at the end of the day instead of walking off, abandoning their own covenants to Christ, to bear one another's burdens to be light as they get their own. to make theirs lighter, even at the expense of those that God sent them into this world to serve and minister to. Am I pleased with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? Oh, no fucking way. No. I will defend my freedom of fucking speech against a church that is literally teaching the ignorance that creates high-minded judgments against the children of men that we are here to serve. If you stupid sons of bitches want to lift yourself in pride and act like somehow you're better than those that we were sent to minister to, simply because they communicate differently than you, then you're fucking stupid. Now, I'll be honest. I learned that principle many, many years ago when I was running a store in Norwich, New York. Oh, the Mormon polish on me at that time. I even remember my employees, even my assistant manager, taking little jabs at me, like, hey, come on, just swear, just say something, please. And I explained to him I didn't want to, because I felt like it defiled me. In my own mind, I believed that it defiled me to express myself in a manner that I had been indoctrinated within Mormonism was unrighteous. The problem with that is you got Brigham Young saying if there's truth anywhere in this world, it belongs to this church. So how about the idea that these swear words that we're referring to, they weren't cursed until after the Battle of Hastings, and that was far before the concept of profanity was ever brought into existence. So what I'm saying is, if tomorrow we wanted to add the word apple, plum, and pear to the list of swear words, it doesn't make those any more cursed or profane than they were before we judged those expressions. Now, if you're going ahead and claiming that you minister and serve for Jesus Christ, and yet you're getting too hung up on the manner in which a person is expressing themselves to actually love them, you're too busy judging them for expressing themselves in a manner that is different than you might agree with, and you believe that you are more of a disciple of Christ than those you are sinning against by judging them in your silent judging most often, or even worse, that you would tell them that they trespass against you or against the laws of God by doing so. Man alive, it's one thing for a person to be verbally abusive. Ironically, Brigham Young was. It's another thing, on the other hand, to demonstrate your freedom of expression under the Constitution of the United States as it hangs by a thread. If the devil had the power to turn the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints against the United States Constitution and to replace it with their own narcissistic judgments, requiring all men and women to submit to their high-minded judgments of what communication should or should not be in the same prideful manner that the Battle of Hastings demonstrated historically, well, then again, history is repeating itself. It's repeating its own stupid fucking self. I don't do that. I'm sorry. In my home, I have 4 children. My children don't choose to express themselves with the colorful nature in which I do. Why? Well, because I explain to my children that the choice to express yourself in ways which are inflammatory unnecessarily, why? For what purpose? If it fails for you to arrive or meet at your audience, there's a problem with that. So here again, herein lies the rub. What do we do if those that we seek to minister to are already indoctrinated by the devil to judge those that they are supposed to be sinning against, or supposed to be serving, but instead they're sinning against them by judging them for not performing at some level of perceived intelligence? And again, where is the intelligence in this? This concept of articulation that in a 21st century world, we believe that our paradigm of what is and isn't correct is somehow so far advanced over what was. In 1,000 years from now, when they look back at how we communicate, ironically, I just heard Ben Shapiro make a statement to a U.S. senator saying, I don't want to embarrass you. You communicate like a child. I promise you 1,000 years from now, the entire human species will view the communication patterns and even the media which we have created in our timeline, and they will judge us the same way. We are ignorant as people. And instead of actually focusing on what we could do to make things better, we're sitting here nitpicking one another in the dumbest of ways. And by this are ye justified? God, I hope not. I do not want to live in a world where the high-minded judgments of Mormonism contrary to the teachings of the restored gospel of Jesus Christ. That this cult, this culture that has grown like the traditions of our fathers amidst the tribe, if that nonsense had the ability to overtake the world, then the battle that we're fighting is a battle against narcissism. It's a battle against human beings who grow beyond natural affection, who are too busy working out how they see themselves in their own mind to care about how their choices or influence directly impact the lives of others. There are men and women in this world that don't have a shred of light to work with. How are we supposed to serve and minister to them if we're too busy judging them because they sin differently than we do? So, how does this apply to, let's say, the stake president in Owego, Clark Johns? Clark has fucked up twice. He's had the opportunity twice to demonstrate due diligence as it relates to the relationship I have with my own mother. He's refused to do so. I didn't want to deal with him the second time. I told my mom I don't think it's a good idea. This guy's already demonstrated the first time. This is how he's going to respond. She insisted, no, Benjamin, he's a man of God. Okay, well, let's give him a chance again. This time I asked him to make sure that he partners with his ecclesiastic leader. I'd like the regional representative to be aware of what's taking place. Instead, this man judges me because I sin differently than he does. He judges me because the manner in which I communicate does not conform to the expectations or high-minded judgment that he has in his own mind. Now, if he's working with some light and knowledge in his brain that results in him functioning different than I might be functioning, and instead of sharing that light and knowledge with me in a manner that can be received, he tries to basically hide a pill in an Oreo and shove it down my throat. Yeah, there's a problem with application here. But again, this guy, he's leading one of the stakes of Zion. Well, why would I want to take my children to a church and an organization that is actively going to teach them high-minded judgments towards other men and women that God has literally placed them in this world to serve? Why? Moreover, if you're a stake president and you have the responsibility within the framework of what your job is to do, and you're not willing to do what your job is, let alone to even uphold your covenants with Christ or to play by the rules in your own church, then you're demonstrating that you don't believe in your own teachings. And yet you're going to judge someone else for not adhering to them? How does that make any sense? Oh, you hypocrite. Clark Johns, if my children grow to adulthood and choose to withhold love from others because they sin differently than they do, then I am as much of a failure in their life as your father was in your own. I say these things in the name of Jesus the Christ, and I say them as an open rebuke. And I remind you that my open rebuke is more loving than all of your silent judgments and all of your choices to withhold love. You're wrong. My mother has openly confessed to her sins. I have it on recording. The things that she has confessed to are indeed forms of abuse. Your failure to do your due diligence and then to turn around and tell this woman who's suffering with issues of mental health that she's righteous, when those are the things that she's already confessed to, meaning that she could not be righteous, she could not be worthy of a temple recommend, and proving that you have no discernment at all, and that you're not engaged in these things in a manner that you should or could. You're too busy being offended that I communicate differently than you do, to love your neighbor as themselves. President Eyring teaches that love is when you place the well-being of someone else before your own well-being. You don't love me. You don't love my mother if you're lying to her and leading her astray. And if this is the best that Mormonism has to offer, well then, allow the bitterness of their fruits to be seen. The olive tree in the Owego stake, and I compare this to the words in Jacob 5, it is bringing forth bitter fruit. Not unlike here in Phoenix, in the stake that I'm located in. All it takes is for a man to arrive in a position of authority and to immediately begin to exercise unrighteous dominion, and all those within his stewardship will suffer. I don't want it. I won't do it. It's not a pattern of parenting that should be taught. And if choosing to stand up for principles of truth in this world results in me being socially bullied within a church that claims to defend truth and to look out for those who are oppressed, to bear the burdens of those in need, meanwhile you're going to sit here and bully my wife? Oh, people, the oldest women's organization in the world, and yet, if you had more women like the woman I'm married to, you'd have an organization worth writing home about. But at this point, you have an organization that's being controlled by the patriarchal order within the church, and when those men say this is the way it's supposed to be, those women fold to it. They don't even understand their own agency. They don't even understand their own freedom of spirit in the ways that they otherwise could, and that too is an aspect of the culture of Mormonism that needs to be broken according to their own fulfillment of prophecy. To hell with it. My story is going to be what it's going to be. The Lord knew every experience that I would be asked to endure before I ever came into this world. He paid the price for it over 2,000 years ago. There's not a hair of this miserable head that will fall that he will not know. There is not an ounce of pain or suffering that I have not endured, nor will endure, which Christ himself did not already enter into the garden and undertake, that he might understand how to succor me in my own infirmities. I warned Gus Squire, Aaron Squire, the stake president here in Glendale, Arizona, that if he would choose to justify the unrighteous dominion which he has justified, that when I was finished healing and when I was finished with the curriculum that the Lord has asked me to submit myself to, even according to my own patriarchal blessing, that I would make a public object lesson out of that man. So be it. Even if whatsoever we measure to others will be measured back upon our own heads to overflowing. I welcome it. Those who abase themselves, them shall God exalt on high. I would rather be object lesson Ben, that I might make an object lesson out of those who are unrighteous, than to hide what they have done in unrighteousness in fear of accountability in my own life. These men don't understand who they started a fucking pissing match with. Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. May these sad sons of yours find humility in their own life to recognize the gross issues of unrighteousness which they are suffering with, even that they would withhold love and blessings from a woman and children. If I'm such a horrible person, what did that have to do with my wife and children? When we tried to attend in a different stake to get away from your bullying, why did you take away from my family the privilege to attend church together just because I wasn't going to submit to your toxic forms of influence? And why the fuck did you do that to me when all I was trying to do was mourn the loss of my own father? You didn't make my burden lighter. You threw bricks on my back. May God have mercy on your souls.